Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics and Silicon Curtain Co live stream, where I am going to be joined by, I'm Jonathan MS Pierce, joined by the great Jonathan Fink, and the even greater James, because he's actually on the front lines doing his bit for the Ukrainian cause, joined by James, who is a drone unit operative,
engineer.
Yeah.
Anyone on the front Azov is greater than any of us combined. I mean, I'll definitely concur with that.
Talk for yourself, mate. I wasn't putting myself in that calculation. So anyway, do we need to have an introduction from James? Super quick introduction for those who don't know you, James.
Yep. Sure, absolutely. It's my 5th time or so on the show. But yeah, so I'm head of the Azov International Battalion's fiber optic FPV drone laboratory. And so my job is to deal with that, all of that technology and spooling fiber and technical drone issues. And hey, Scruffy, good to see you, my man. Yeah, so that's what I do, and I couldn't do it without many of your viewers' donations to the lab. I mean, honestly, almost every single tool, every instrument we have in the lab, all the spoolers, the 3D printers, they're all coming from donations here. All donations.
To that, I will say, at the moment, ATP Geopolitics is waiting to get Frontline Kits on board with Frontline Kit, which is Richard Woodruff in Lviv, making drones, getting to Frontline. He's great. They're doing a really good job. We're going to be doing a fundraising campaign for them. But at the moment, we're in the in-between stage. So if anyone is wanting to contribute at all today and until we get that campaign going forward, the links are in my description to James and his Azov fundraising. I don't know about Jonathan Fink, but certainly from my point of view, please support James.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
We'll put those links in. We're about to kick off a fundraiser for Hartia for vampire drones via Jigaspor. So that's one coming up on Silicon Curtain next week.
Very cool.
We should get all the bits and bobs, and the assets together and the details where people can donate. So just a heads up on that one. It's a tricky one though, isn't it? I mean, I know YouTube will probably consider one kind of thing, but when you put a fundraiser out there and one is for things that can be badged up as humanitarian, even though, let's face it, trucks can evacuate people, they can be used for all sorts of other stuff as well. But people feel good. Okay, I'm not sending my money into something that is overtly lethal. I think it's an interesting one when you do a campaign like Vampires, because then you're doing something which is far more kinetic, dare I say. I don't know what your experiences on that one and what your thoughts are, and whether actually people need to get over themselves and face up to the reality of this, which is one journalist got very upset last week when another journalist basically said, every fewer Russian is one step closer towards victory and peace.
Absolutely.
And you can't say that.
My position is exactly that. Sorry to jump in, but from a humanitarian point of view, I actually think the best humanitarian course. I had this discussion many times at the beginning of the war. Like, should I campaign for just humanitarian stuff to try and be kind of morally upstanding? But I thought that the quicker this war ends with the success of the Ukrainians at heart, then that's the best humanitarian outcome. And actually, they need. I'm sorry, but they need lethal weapons in order to do that. So that's how I understand the situation.
In fact, if they got lethality in greater scale earlier on, this might already be over. I think that's the case one can.
Exactly. We wouldn't have to be doing this if Ukraine had the weapons it was promised at the beginning. Honestly,
So one of the things that has got me quite excited, James, and I'm not easily excited. I'm quite a stoic, sort of statuesque person. But something that's got me excited over the last few days has been
It's not even plastic pan or polythene pan, is it? It's something else that's got you excited.
It is something else. Less said about that, the better. So the FP2 mid-range near-ear drones, scaling up these FP1 and FP2 to 200 drones a day. I've long said that this war is about, from Ukraine's point of view, is about prevailing by hitting from a distance. You don't expend human beings by striking from a distance. And that you can talk about FPV drones, you can talk about Mavics, you can talk about Vampire drones, then you can go on to FP2 drones, then you can go on to FP1 drones and cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, and all of those. They need to scale up to a critical point. And I think we're reaching a critical point at the moment where Primari and the unmanned systems forces and all these really, really active units are smashing the Russians up to 200 kilometers in distance from the front line in serious ways. Do you get a sense of this happening as well? I know you're much more focused on FPVs.
I mean, yeah, but you know, my first unit was actually a mid-range fixed wing bomber, okay, and that I worked on, and so I'm very much interested in that, and you know what's going on there, and ultimately, you know, my feeling about it is this: if you have to fight a shark or a bear, okay, what do you want to do, right? Is it a good idea to try and, you know, constantly punch the bear in the teeth, you know, stab the bear in the mouth? That's a dumb idea to try to keep doing it over and over. Okay. No, punch him in the nose, punch him in the eye, punch him in the gut, punch him in the heart, stab him in the backside. That's how we're gonna win this war. You know,
shoot him from about 50 meters.
Or shoot him from about 50 meters. You got.
I mean, that's my point. That's why I thought you were going to go. That's what I thought you were going to go, which is like, I'd rather snipe that bear, and then I'm safe. Thank you very much. I'm hiding up a tree, and I'm just shooting from distance.
Totally. And so, you know, it's all fine to try and charge in, and there's always going to be a place for that, and that is definitely what my unit, you know, is primarily involved with. But ultimately, I think this war is going to be won by the guys in the back row, the nerds sitting at the back who can direct these. You know, war is about logistics, right? And especially this war of attrition, and you know, cutting them off back there so they never get to the front is actually the most humane thing we can do as well. You know,
this is joining up those ideas. This is exactly what I've been saying the last couple of days. So you've got these strikes at 200 kilometers, 100 kilometers. You know, these FP2 drones are now going to be, they have either 60 kilogram or 105 kilogram warheads, and now going to have 158 kilogram warheads, so they can do serious damage to buildings, logistics. You've got Rubicon drone operators and headquarters being hit routinely. You've got logistics, and then you've got the FPV drone. And we've been hearing from Russians over the last week that yes, Starlink and Telegram have been a real issue, but also the Ukrainians are now flooding the skies with just a huge number of drones. And considering the Ukrainians said they're moving from 4.4 million drones production in a year to 7 million drones, that has to translate into huge numbers of drones in the skies. They're recruiting more operators. So what can you tell us? Because I think you're getting some advantages in certain areas of the front line where the Ukrainians are able to hit logistics all from 0 line to 100 to 200 kilometers, and that, fingers crossed, translates into more successful Ukrainians. What are your feelings?
Yeah, I think that, you know, there are places where obviously where the orcs are pressing very hard, and my unit has been in places where, you know, the drone missions are 10 kilometers or less, 5 kilometers, you know. But in general, I would say it's getting further and further out, the missions that you have to fly, even FPVs. And part of that is the porous sort of this gray zone border, where you want to get them as far back, as far away from you as you possibly can. Like you say, you know, don't use a dagger, use a gun. So that has definitely happened. I feel like Ukraine, we are starting to turn a corner where, you know, Europe standing behind Ukraine with the manufacturing is really a big deal, because that manufacturing is essentially untouchable, and also it's sustainable because it's not charity necessarily.
No.
Europe is starting to see how helping Ukraine actually is going to benefit them economically and strategically. And now, you know, the UAE even is posting pictures with the Ukrainian flag, and really seeing this is the corner is being turned where Ukraine becomes a net benefit, and helping Ukraine. It always was going to be net benefit, but now people can see it. You know,
I've just done a whole video. I've just done a whole video on the Middle East, which is due to, I've set it to come out at 5 o'clock UK time, just because I didn't want it to clash with this. But yeah, really big political movements in the Middle East with regard to Ukraine, really significant. But your point is salient about Europe being behind in terms of manufacturing. And that's not just a co-production of stuff with Ukraine, but it's also, so Rheinmetall are just making, and I don't want to advocate for military industrial complex making money off wars, but they are doing very well for themselves. Thank you very much, Rheinmetall. But they've ramped up production of artillery ammunition to incredible amounts, and that scale looks like it's going to continue increasing. And that kind of assistance to Ukraine, I think, is super, super important. And where I've seen some really interesting data charts where the US has just stopped giving aid to Ukraine, and now like Europe has just massively overtaken, and it's really, really important.
Yeah. And you know, the thing is, Ukrainians, I am going to remember this. We're going to remember who helped, who was there in the clutch, you know, through thick and thin, over the long term. And
Norway.
You know, yeah, oh my God, Norway, Sweden, Finland, OMG,
Denmark
guys.
As well, for a tiny country, Denmark's doing an extraordinary amount. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have a Norwegian truck out in my driveway right now, actually, and the other ones come from Finland. So,
and if the $90 billion euro loan doesn't come through, the Baltics and the Nordic states are going to bilaterally sort out a $30 billion euro one.
Yeah,
so
just to keep lights on.
Yeah.
I think people forget as well that Norway actually has a sliver of border with Russia. So we always think of the Baltics and as the ones in the far line. Well, Norway shares an Arctic border as well.
Yeah, I'm going to show you guys this just for a laugh. So someone says the Europeans have stepped up bigly, which is something the bullying toddler in the White House never seems to grasp. I said, okay, so you've got the US aid here, and you've got this is Europe, but someone else rightly says, actually, what you need to look at this graph to
that's just military aid. That's the
thing. And there is that. But you know, this person saying you're not noticing that Norway giving more military aid to Ukraine than France, Italy, Spain, and Poland combined.
Yes,
Norway giving more than France, Poland, Italy, and Spain. It's just Norway. So
Italy and Spain's size is
and Sweden
derisory there. Even the UK, that's been pretty generous. It has to be said that if you compare UK's population to Denmark, I mean, come on, you know, Denmark is a population of, what are they, 6.5 million or something?
Yeah. Norway has like 5 people, so
yeah, we've got 10 times the population, and we're not giving 10 times more. So
Yeah, indeed. So, I think that's an interesting point, James. You know, the Ukrainians hopefully will remember who stood by them. And you can argue that the people standing by them are the countries that have the most to lose if Ukraine. So there is like you were mentioning with the economy, with the supporting industrially, with the manufacturing of weaponry is in the best interest of those countries economically and geopolitically. The same can be said for all those countries, aforementioned countries, are the most likely to be suffering if Ukraine was to fail. So there is some kind of self-service there, of course, as you'd expect. But yeah, really good. So what do you work? Sorry,
James. Well, I'm going to fire a question at James, and I'm fascinated by, as I start to sort of get to grips with the ecosystem of drones, and the intense, not sort of damaging competition, but the intense kind of productive rivalry between different drone technologies and units.
Big time.
Are we seeing here a new paradigm of war? And we can turn to the Middle East afterwards, because it seems to me that this is going to be difficult to replicate unless you're actually in a war of this intensity. But Ukraine has almost brought market forces and combined them with these incredible social forces, civic society, innovation, problem solving. This seems to me a fairly unique conjunction of Ukrainianness here. I'd love to get a take on that, and whether it's going to be especially difficult for the West to try to replicate that.
I mean, you know, it's the Ukrainian people are incredibly peaceful, I would say. Much more peaceful than your average American walking down the street. They never wanted this. They have been dragged kicking and screaming, literally, into this war, but now it's survival, straight survival instinct. And historically speaking, nothing motivates humans to innovate more than when their life is directly under threat, you know, or when we're trying to kill each other, unfortunately. And will it survive the war? I think if there are economic benefits to these technologies, we don't know what that's going to be. You know, when the space program invented Velcro, or you know, nobody was sure what was going to come of that, but we did it to beat the Russians.
Which one?
Yeah,
Not
you know,
so
all that.
Happy about anymore.
You know, but you never know how these things are going to work out. I certainly hope you know, that we're not going to create the, you know, AI monster that's gonna destroy us all. But
the Skynet scenario, which
right,
in Kiev recently,
yeah. But you know, I hope that humanity can use these technologies for some benefit, and we don't know what that's going to be. When that happens, though, Ukraine is going to be the powerhouse. It's going to be at the top. You know, when I even last year trying to tell Ukrainians this, they just couldn't believe, you know, that idea, because they have had it literally beaten into their minds in many cases that, you know, they tell me, you know, oh, our country, it's not that great, it's corruption, and you know, the roads are bad, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, Ukraine is awesome, okay, and you guys are gonna be amazing when this war is finished. But I think that we're starting to turn the corner. I think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it might not be a train. So we have a reasonable suspicion that, you know, that it might not. And so, you know, the other thing is from an army like recruitment standpoint, I think that Ukrainians are starting to see, certainly foreigners who are coming here are starting to see that you could come to Ukraine, get training on drones, and have a career in whatever future technology emerges from that. You know, that's a real thing.
Just on the idea that Ukraine could be going places after the war, I think Ukraine, it's all about finding silver linings to a very dark cloud, okay? And the war is indeed a very dark cloud, but Ukraine's in a position where it can say, right, what are the skills that we have nurtured during this war? So drone technology, electronic warfare capabilities, actually scaling manufacturing under pressure to make cheap but effective weaponry. So a lot of military industrial complex stuff, but also they're going to be rebuilding cities and towns, right? And so I think there's a lot that's going to be said about being able to start from scratch. You know, like when you play things like Sim City or like City Skylines or whatever it is, you know, these city building games, and you're like, I love starting from scratch and saying, right, I'm going to build this city using renewable technology, and I'm going to make these roads and do these things, and it gives, like, you can take that abstract idea and say to Ukraine, you've got a chance of like restarting your society, but in a way that you want it to be, not in a way that it's kind of evolved higgledy-piggledy over time. Just like you can create this new Ukraine and take it in the direction you want to, and be the experts in rebuilding cities using sustainable technology, or thinking about park spaces, or I don't know, whatever. There's an opportunity there for Ukraine.
I think
well,
that
rethinking industry is another one. I mean, there's academics here in Oxford who do a lot of stuff on green steel and green heavy industry. It's going to be fascinating. I don't know if I don't think you saw it in Lviv, Jonathan, but there's some fantastic business centers, sort of tech business hubs and tech centers and business parks with the apartments. And to think they were planned and conceived and built during a full-scale war.
It's crazy. I mean, when I go to the big cities,
beautiful.
When I go to the big cities, even Kharkiv, and I see like cranes putting up buildings at the same time that the Russians are trying to knock them down as fast as they put them up, you know.
And really, some of these are very well. I think the projektowanie, I think, is the Ukrainian word for it. I'm not sure what the English word is, but it's just the whole conception of how they're built and planned and laid out. I mean, the ones I saw in Lviv are exquisitely done. I mean, dare I say it, much better than many of the new parks that spring up, you know, around here. They're brilliantly conceived, and if they can scale that to the whole country, then you're looking at a very interesting future.
Sorry, James,
I would say I would say that you were talking about, you know, this building a bright new future thing. In some ways, Ukraine has already done that with regards to internet infrastructure and banking. Okay, these two things, because Ukraine was pretty late to the game with internet, really like in the 2010s. People started to get computers, you know, late or mid 2000s. So they really leapfrogged over a lot of the old legacy technologies. And the same is true with banking. You know, 90% of American banks, or 85-90% still use COBOL for their, you know, for their like code, which is like the original programming language.
I watched a video.
Like 1959.
I watched a video on an American who had moved to the UK, and she's comparing like life in the UK to life in America. And she did a whole video on the banking sector and how behind the times the American banking sector is. And it still uses really, like, it's why it costs a lot. Like, banking's free in the UK, right? So it's free to have a bank account. There's no charges, and you can move money around really easily, but you can't in the US. And the system they use is not universal, or at least it didn't used to be. And it's really, I couldn't believe how backward the American banking system is in terms of tech and stuff. And so you're right. So
just banging rocks together. Really.
And some of the tech giants are making a lot of money off this legacy code. So if AI can come in and replace it, rewrite it, I mean, they're looking at a huge loss of potential income from people like IBM and others. But that's not a little interesting aspect of it.
But in terms of like after the war, rebuilding the physical infrastructure, you know, you're going to see the same sort of thing, like you described, leapfrogging over all the legacy stuff.
Yeah, interesting. There's a question for you, and I don't know if you can answer this because you're probably too near the front lines to be concerned with what's striking backwards. But I had a question. I've been talking about this, that Ukraine's been, and I don't know if you've got any insight, but Ukraine's been striking at the hydrocarbons, obviously, you know, kinetic sanctions on Russian infrastructure, and really giving it hell. It's taken its foot off the gas a little bit over the last, I guess, month maybe, but then the Iran war has meant that everyone's desperate for oil and gas, including Russian staff. And then last night there was a massive strike on an oil transshipment center, and I was wondering whether there would be pressure on the Ukrainians not to strike at Russian hydrocarbons infrastructure, because everyone now wants oil, where the Ukrainians must be thinking now's the time to hammer it, because then they can't make money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Zelensky cares anymore. Too many people have died. Too many horrible things have been done by the Russians, and I don't think Ukrainians are going to tolerate anymore. That's, I mean, I work at the tactical level, not the strategic level, obviously. You know, when I was working at more of a mid-range, we absolutely were looking at you know, fuel depots and things like that, you know, for sure. You know, I think actually okay, so that mid-range gap from like 30-40 kilometers out to 200 kilometers, that has been, you know, with the lack of artillery and things, that range of missiles. You know, that getting these all the FPs, just get all the FPs in there and start attacking that logistics area. That's that staging area that Russia needs to have in place in order to wage this war effectively. So you just think of like that ring from about 40 up to about 200 kilometers. That's your logistics, you know, back area. And we really need to start hitting that, but also at the production, at the depots, freaking all the way to freaking Vladivostok, man. You know, that's,
yeah.
Kinetic sanctions are going to be the only way. And, you know, we've been pushed into that. We didn't want to. We didn't want to. They could have just had regular old normal sanctions temporarily, and then after the war, Russia could have come back. But it's not going to be that way. It's not going to be able. They're not going to be able to rebuild.
It's going to be generational issues, I think. There,
absolutely.
That's a really good point. You mentioned artillery, and I think I survey the general staff figures in fine detail every single day, and I've noticed, and it's not unusual, actually they've been doing this, the Ukrainians, since May 2023. There's when they did the counter-offensive and it didn't quite go to plan, and they found out that, oh, there's loads of artillery and we really need to degrade the artillery before we do any movements. So then for the last 2.5 years they've been trying to do that, and that's really picked up in the last couple of weeks as well. So you're seeing things like 50 to 70 pieces of artillery, 40 to 70 pieces of artillery every day on the loss lists, and this seems to be in concert with the attacks in Halaipale. In other words, you know, we are not going to attack unless we are explicitly taking out their artillery. Is that something you would agree with? Are you seeing that? Is your unit very big on taking out artillery? What are the biggest high value stuff that you guys are looking at taking out?
Yeah, so I am friends with the commanders of, you know, one of the units whose job it is. They are an artillery unit, but they're also specifically like an anti-artillery unit. And that's really, I think, what Ukraine is mainly using its artillery for, is to hunt other artillery.
Right.
Okay. So they're waiting until they hear it, and they have detectors, and they're proprietary. They pinpoint where that artillery is coming from, and they hit it, you know, and it's minutes.
So that's interesting. That's why we're not seeing the evidence of this then, because the idea is that you get visual evidence for most things that are blown up, and that's easy if it's a tank or an IFV, right? You've got a burning Hulk there. But why do we have so many artillery pieces destroyed every day but not have the evidence? So that's because it's counter battery fire coming from the Ukrainian.
You're not going to get drone video of that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Really.
Interesting.
And I mean, yeah, they are I have had it in my AO. Okay, they weren't doing artillery for a long time, maybe since the summer, but just recently, over the last month, we started seeing some hits in my AO, or hearing them rather.
Hearing Ukrainian artillery hits on Russian stuff.
No, hearing the Russian stuff come in.
Right. Okay.
And then, you know, there can be like an answer from some other distant place, we don't know where. You can hear the counter battery fire, and it's different. You can usually tell which direction it's going,
incoming,
depending on how distant it is. Yep.
And we haven't heard much about this phrase from 2023-24, which was ammunition famine. Do we presume that neither the Ukrainians nor the Russians necessarily have a huge problem with the quantities of ammunition and artillery units?
I think they absolutely have famine, but it's become more of a long-term diet. You know, in other words, they've realized that at one point, wasn't like the Russian artillery doing like 60,000 rounds a day.
So the beginning of the war, there were estimates it was 40 to 60,000 a day, and now they're down to something. Oh, what was the last one I read? Was it something like 6,000? And it's almost parity now, Ukraine and Russia.
Right. So it's just trickling in, and I here's what I think. This is complete speculation on my part. Okay, and somebody's going to watch this and tell me I'm crazy. I think we're going to start to see drones fired from artillery. That's what I think.
But you do get or like the Switchblade 600 and 300 are fired from like little mortar tubes. And if you think about it, the dumb munitions that are the GLSDB, so the ground launch small diameter,
kind of what it was supposed to be,
is a kind of like a sort of well, it's not really a drone, but it's like it's that kind of principle, fired out of a tube, does a bit of gliding, you can move it around, and then it falls.
These lines between like artillery shell, drone, and cruise missile are starting to like combine and cross.
We hear the term hybrid. You hear the term drone missile already. So things like the Peklo, I think it is a Ukrainian one, is a drone missile, and you're like not quite sure. It's just a big bangy thing that goes a long way and blows up.
Big bangy thing, love it. You should be in military tech marketing.
I should be writing for the UK Defence Journal.
Yeah,
I think we're going to start to see more drones powered by jets, like jet engines, like electric jet engines, even, because there's electric jets now. That's a thing, okay. And so we're talking. I think we're going to start to see like not huge jet engines, but smaller and more miniaturization. I think.
I dare it say some interceptors are fired up through compressed air tubes to punch them into the air faster, so they can, pursue whatever it is, Garands and stuff.
Sure. This, it's moving so fast, you guys. Oh my God. In the last month, I've learned like volumes of knowledge more than I ever had in the previous. Like I'm learning things so fast, and I can't even keep up. Like this is where we were mentioned before about the competition between units, which can be a little bit frustrating. Because as an American and most foreigners, we're all about collaboration, and so I'm always trying to foster collaboration between different units.
Well, you're not about the free market. I thought, what about free market? Oh no, you're an anarcho, like
socialist.
Yeah, you're a rare American. You are.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, I mean, the Ukrainian theory, which I've been told many times by Ukrainians, is no, we want that competition because it motivates people to innovate. And I guess it's working. It can be a little frustrating at times, but it's working. So I think we are getting away though from the situation where every little drone lab is scattered all over the place. The bigger companies, sort of the conglomeration, and moving more towards manufacturing and things like that. I think.
Yeah, I think you end up being in one extreme or the other, like either completely centralized like Russia, or completely fragmented, but then unable to have strategic planning from say the military point of view, from the government point of view. You need somewhere in the middle, and I think
it's pretty clear that this is what Fedorov is trying to implement. Is some level of the ability to plan. In order to have the ability to plan, you have to know what you have to begin with.
Data.
And that's
he's big on data. Yeah, I've got some stuff on him coming out tomorrow, but I'm interested in what your thoughts on him being in charge of the MOD, because he's in charge. He was a minister for digital transformation, which means, and he was young, and I think all these are interesting like characteristics. So he's got that tech knowledge. He'd also worked a lot with drones. He knows what he's kind of talking about with tech, but also he's young enough to also, having been brought up somewhat more in the tech world, that I think he was good for talking to Elon Musk, for example. But he's also got some great plans that seem to be bearing fruits. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just going to be a difficult transition because anytime you have a mix of systems, a clash of systems, in that edge is where you get corruption. Okay, so when you have communism and you have capitalism, and these two, when they cross over, that's where the corruption exists. So when you have, let's say, tribal society and a capitalist society, that's where you have corruption. Okay, it's a naturally emergent thing, and Ukraine very valiantly wants to root out corruption, but how do you define what that is? So let me just give you an example. Okay, a lot of Fedorov wants to know what assets the Ukrainian army has, so you can plan. A lot of assets, drones, cars, these sorts of things are donated to units. Like 30, maybe 50% of the material resources that a lot of units have, they're not on the books, right? They're not on the battalion's books. The battalion doesn't want them, or the brigade or whatever. Battalion maybe doesn't want them on the books because then it costs money for them, or they get fewer resources from their higher up, from the higher organization, because the organization says, oh, you already have all of these things that you need. When in fact, no, they actually don't. It just, one example that I often use is one of my commanders was in Bakhmut, and his unit, they had one drone that was doing I think like bombing missions, and it came from their brigade, from their higher up unit. It was the only drone, and they wouldn't give them any more drones, but they got donated drones. Okay, and they had hundreds of these donated drones, but every drone gets recorded like you would a car, right? So when you lose a drone, it's $3,000-$4,000 or whatever it is. Now you have to account for that. There's like 16 pages of paperwork in triplicate and all this crap. Nobody wants to deal with that. It's going to gum up. You're trying to fight a war here. And so what they did was, every time they would lose one of the donated drones, they would just mark it up as, oh, this mission was flown by this. The drone that came from their brigade never left their commander's desk. Okay. But it was like a hero drone. Okay. Yeah. This is a hero drone.
1,000 missions, never been shut down.
Oh yeah. So because otherwise they would, they would never have survived. So it's going to be interesting.
There's creative accounting that is necessary to be able to operate with some kind of fluidity, I guess, and that you could chalk that up as corruption, or just like, it depends what your intent is, right? Your intent is
very much so.
It's not about self. It's not about grifting for yourself personally. It's like, I've got a unit, and like, we're going to get screwed over if we write these down properly. So we're not going to write these down properly. And if you call that corruption, then so be it.
Exactly.
It's what most people would do.
But at the same time, that gives to the higher ups who are assessing what's happening on the ground. I mean, assuming they're paying attention to those
not good enough knowledge. Fedorov is desperate for decent data, and of course that doesn't give you an accurate garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Accurate picture. Question for you from Arno Schlick saying, do you think the anti-drone help by Ukraine will change the Trump administration's anti-Ukrainian and pro-Russian worldview? Do you think? I mean, first of all, talk to us about. And I know you don't work on interceptor drones necessarily, but talk to us about not yet. Talk to us about whether Ukraine do actually have technological know-how that other nations don't have. Like, is there definitely?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. So like talk, but what would that look like compared to why can't the US, provide some drones for the UAE, for example?
It takes some time to train a good drone pilot, and training an interceptor drone pilot, that's a whole other level, right? Because if you're flying an FPV, okay, let's say you're flying a Mavic that has stabilization, it always goes like this. Okay, well, that's easy. Anybody could do that almost. No offense, guys, but but then you're flying an FPV. An FPV doesn't have any stabilization. Okay. And so if you go up, you just you keep going, and you are the stabilization. Okay. I'm just using that as an example. Now multiply that by 10, because you have to go at such high speeds for an interceptor. It takes a long time to learn that. Just to get a base level, it takes about 60 hours, really like almost consecutive hours. Of flying, to kind of rewire your brain. And I'm by no means a good drone pilot. Trust me. There's a reason I'm in the laboratory. Some of these kids who play the video games, they're similar to that what you would do flying, you know, with the they have a natural talent for it. Maybe that, you know, takes them less time or what have you. But for the most part, I mean, so there's that. So it takes, let's say, I think it takes 6 months to make a good drone pilot. Okay, so forget about, do they have the training? Do they have even? Does the U.S. even know the steps that you need to take to get that, to do that kind of training? Are they listening to Americans coming back from Ukraine as experienced drone pilots, which I think are pretty few, you know, pretty few. There's a lot of like infantry guys coming back from Ukraine to the US, but not as many. So are they listening to that? And then, you know, the technology, it's the advancing that technology very, very fast. This cat and mouse game that we've been playing that's so accelerated now, where it's a 2-week cycle, you know. I constantly changing things in my laboratory, and you know, we just had to completely throw out all of our old freaking fiber spools and re-spool everything because we found a new and better way to do it, you know. And
so now that the US has asked, so I believe that the Ukrainians are helping in UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, right? They're helping those nations, but they're also helping the US in Jordan, right? So to help defend US bases in Jordan. Do you think, as Arno here suggests could be the case, do you think that this might have a positive effect on the relationship between the US and Ukraine? Do you think the US-Ukraine relationship
that's the question, right? Yeah.
I mean, and also, is there?
No, I don't think it will improve. I don't think it'll improve it. I potentially, it could be a threat to, you know what I mean, to the American like administration or hegemony. They could kind of take it that way, as
that's
like
something I mentioned in my video on this. Yeah,
you know, I mean, really, because I don't see any potential for the U.S. to my country to back off of its stance of like, oh, we're the best at everything, you know.
So Saudi Arabia is an interesting case. So this is a country that the United States always wants on its side. There's a big military industrial complex relationship between the US and Saudi Arabia, same with the UK actually. And that's, so, you know, you want the Middle East to be with you because it's a zero-sum game. If they're not with you, then they're with the other guys, right? Same with kind of Turkey, I guess, as well. But that military industrial complex relationship might be something that's threatened if Ukraine, these upstarts, come along and say, hey, we can sell loads of stuff to you guys using drones, and the Americans might go, hang on, like this is our patch, you know. I don't know.
I think that there's already been companies like in Germany, what's the one, Helsing, you had a lot of money coming along. Hey, we got this fancy schmancy new technology. Does it work?
Yeah, we'd heard like different accounts of that, because the Ukrainians complained that, you know, they're having trouble launching it consistently effectively. But then you had Russians complaining that, and it may be that once they are launched, they are effective. It's just actually launching things. But because you had Russians complaining that the Helsing HX2 drone, which uses supposedly AI, I think, to help target or whatnot, is having an effect, and they were like complaining about it. So who knows?
What's the state of the contract? Because I think isn't that up in the air at the moment? Ukraine isn't necessarily accepting them until various issues are ironed out, or their marketing BS catches up with reality, you know. Or rather, reality catches up with the marketing BS.
Well, talking about marketing, before we came live, James brought up this subject, so I think we might as well broach it here. Patrick Carlson says, I wonder what kind of laser Ukraine used to take out fiber optic drones, and if they're planning to scale it up. And I will show you a video of this before you guys can react to it. So this is the video that did the rounds, very short video, did the rounds the other day. The claim is that this is an ambush drone, a Russian ambush drone that's waiting on a road to take off and then go and hit something that drives along. And you've got a Ukrainian drone that flies above it with a fiber optic cutter, like some kind of laser light that cuts the fiber optic to this Russian drone, and then the image goes. and lots of people have been talking about this. People keep mentioning it on my threads. What's your thought, James?
I mean, I'm not saying it's outside the realm of possibility, but I don't know how it works. This is what I mean when I say I'm constantly being floored by, you know, new things, new technology. It's great to be learning things at my age, you guys. I mean, I could imagine a world in which this would work. The physics might have to be altered slightly. I mean, like, what is that? Is that a laser? It's very square. Okay. It could, but it have to be a very high powered laser. Okay.
Which means you need power.
Reminds you a little bit of those, you know, paint peeling machines, isn't it? Which they
oh, the laser things,
strip
yeah,
the paint off, you
right,
know, like that.
But you get above about 100.
Yeah, and they're in real proximity, millimeters away from the surface that they're
right.
That they're
this is what this is what I was going to say. Exactly that, millimeters distance. You know, I wouldn't expect that it's frying because, right, so fiber optic is basically glass with like a coating on it. You have to get through the coating. The glass itself, you know, is a high melting temperature. But if you have raw fiber, okay, and you could get leakage in there, maybe you could see, if you look very carefully, if you pause it right at the end, maybe it's just reflecting off the grass, but it could be sending a code. Like a UART. I forgive me. I'm not a UART expert yet. I'm learning. This is one of these things I'm learning like crazy. You know, but what if that is like a, you know, like you scan a code in the grocery store, right? You scan a QR code. Well, you can do the reverse. Okay, you can send a code. That lights. You know, the fiber optic signals are just, you know, ones and zeros, Morse code. Think of it that way at the simplest level, on or off, basically. So if it could be sending a code and it's sending a command to, if you know exactly what the electronics are on the target drone, you could potentially send a command through the fiber to the drone, a UART command, basically.
But essentially you're saying it's likely to be PsyOps.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
What
I'm saying is it's well, yeah. So okay, rephrase that. It's unlikely that this is going to be some. I can't understand how that can be laser because you're going to need power. And you can't, like, if you have something like Dragonfire, which is the laser from the British warships now that they've given to Ukraine to play around with, and I think Ukraine have made
now that is something that fries. That is a fryer,
but that requires
We've got a good comment here suggesting how this might work, which is that actually rather than cutting through the fiber as we seems not feasible really based at the height and the distance, but this is actually sending a burst of light into the fiber optic,
into the media converter.
The
what he's talking about there is the media converter overwhelming with signal. But that would be a temporary, what Papa Dutch here. So it's like you know, taking out a website, or you know, you could take the website, DDoS, yeah, that sort of thing. But you would need to send to permanently disable the drone. You need to send a command to the drone that somehow screws it up, you know, that effectively disables it in some way. You know, send a command that says turn off the camera, you know, something like that. That's the only thing I can envision. I've been scrambling. To be honest with you, I reached out to everybody I knew since last night, or since yesterday, I haven't. If I hear something, I'll let you know. Let's put it that way.
Question for you. What about the French drone swarm defense concept? So just to let people know, this is like a wall of drones. You don't even need to be a drone pilot or have any skills. Apparently the French companies, and they have tested it in Ukraine by all accounts, you basically have 100 drones. You see a Shahed, for example, you go and press a button, 100 drones take off, they acquire the target, and then however many take it out, and then the rest of them that aren't used then come back down. and land again, and you can use them again, and then just replace the ones you get used. Have you heard anything about this kind of technology?
Not that particular one, but I know people working on exactly that kind of technology here in Ukraine, Americans even. But you know, here's the issue, right? REB, EW, electronic warfare. Okay, you need to have those drones communicating either with each other and or with, you know, a antenna back here at the back. Okay, and so when you get electronic warfare, throw that in the mix, then that all goes haywire, and all of a sudden your drones are flying every which way. Okay, so you know, if you think about the like Chinese drone displays, or we have them, you know, in America too, I think maybe where you have a flying dragon in the sky and everybody says wow, and it's a little bit scary. You throw electronic warfare at that, and all of a sudden, you know, it's not going to work. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think that in the defensive, from a defensive standpoint, it's actually more probable if you have kind of a layered defense and you put that drone, let's call it a drone net, outside of your electronic warfare zone. Okay. So you know, for different purposes, you know, use the right tool for the job, basically. So these can also be used for not just for defense, but also for offense. And thank you, Kevin. Yeah, that is my fundraising website, guys. Please, if you will go and help the Azov International Battalion and our fiber optic laboratory, we desperately need it. Somebody asked in the chat, like, what do you need
just
most
about
right
to now? So there are two questions. So first of all, right. First of all, this one.
Cool.
So Kenneth Tufter says, a mate of mine was recently drafted into a drone team. What are good items to donate to them? Some of the participants won't donate to lethal things.
Yeah.
So what? And then the second question, which is which is for you particularly, is what are the stuff that you most desperately need at the moment? So a question for James from Mr. Reb Tyree. What are the items most needed for your section? Number
one thing is optical fiber. Okay, optical fiber. I have different ways for people to donate to that. The good thing is that Ukraine hit Russia's only fiber optic manufacturing plant with a missile. The bad thing is now they're buying all their fiber optic from China, and the price has gone from maybe 15,000 grivnas. I don't know, what is that in US dollars?
But it's not just that. Apparently, it's because data centers are also buying it in oodles, and they're willing to pay way more than drone teams fighting on the front line.
Going up to, it's about 60,000 grivnas, which is like $1,400 for a 50-kilometer spool. You're going to get 2 or 3 drone missions out of a 50-kilometer spool for $1,200 to $1,400.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a big change.
It's a massive change, dude. I'm freaking out about it.
Ukraine, are the Ukrainians not building their own fiber optic factory? I thought that'd be a number one.
I mean, even Europe, to my knowledge, maybe has one, I think, in Finland, and it's low production, if I'm not mistaken. There's people talking about it now, you know. But basically, we let all the manufacturing go to China because it was just the cheapest source for everything. And now, you know, those machines are massive, incredibly expensive machines. Who has the expertise to build them? Where are you going to source the parts? It's all going to come from China. It takes years to set up these factories in some cases, and millions, if not billions of dollars in investment. And the Chinese government has done that. They pushed everyone else out of the market, just like they did the solar panels and these other things. And now they have a stranglehold on it. And the price has gone up like crazy. And guys, optical fiber. We need optical fiber. And you can buy one mission's worth for oh my God. One mission's worth of optical fiber is about $550.
Jeez, and that really has. So you were talking, one was talking about drones being sort of $300 to $500, right? For
the very
drone.
cheapest, very cheapest for a drone that's going to carry like 25 kilometers of fiber, you're really looking starting at 750 up to about 1,000.
Right. And now with the cost of fiber going up, then that's exacerbated.
Yeah, oh God, yeah, it's crazy, it's insane, and I'm freaking out, guys. I'm freaking out about it. And so the second thing is the 3D printer filament, which thank God has not gone up too much in price. It is going up. I might have to adjust those prices on my website. It's up to about 1,600 grivnas. Anyway, that so I do need to adjust, but that be that as it may. Yeah, it's optical fiber and 3D. God, I'm having a panic attack about this right now.
It's okay, mate. We're here for you.
Yeah. So, because I'm looking at my lead times, I'm how much runway do I have before I run out, and hoping that prices come down. Where can I find old stock? In some places that maybe still has the lower price. I'm doing the purchasing on this or taking donations for it. So, guys, if you know anybody who in Europe or whatever who has, I'm even talking to bulk distributors who have like 750 kilogram rolls. I don't know how we're going to fit it in the lab, but love will find a way.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And so optical fiber, 3D printer filament, and then just actual physical drones. So we take that optical fiber, we take the 3D printer filament, we make a spool. We spool it onto something that's going to fit the mission, and then we slap it on a drone. We can use almost any drone as long as it's big enough to carry that and the munition, essentially. So that's what we need.
There's some conversation about this fiber optic laser shenanigan thing. My understanding says Doogs me. I think that's correct. My understanding is when the laser hits the fiber, it sends a burst of light into the sensing device on the drone and destroys it. Someone else says, can I send the solution in the chat for a Forbes article that explains it? So apparently it's explained in a Forbes article.
All right. I'm
Noadomrak says, there's two layers of glass with a different refraction index to propagate the laser light along the length of the cable. I actually took a college class in fiber optics and light theory, so there you go. A bit of skill there. The outer layer of glass has a higher refraction index, so the light bounces back into the cable. So line of sight isn't needed to get the light to traverse around corners and bends in the path. So anyway, there I don't know whether that helps at all, but
yeah, but the flip side of that is that the light shouldn't be going into the fiber in the first place. That's the problem. That's the thing that I'm not understanding about. I'm checking Forbes. Hey man, I learn something new every day. I love it.
And question from Stephen Mandel from Norway. James, are the Ukrainian drones more resistant to electronic warfare now? We've heard this from the Russians. So one of the things I posted the other day, or talked about the other day, is when I was discussing the Russians complaining about the plethora of Ukrainian drones in the air now, they were saying that also the Ukrainian drones are able to fly beyond 10,000 megahertz. So they are now using signals that they can't detect, the Russians can't detect. And also that, and also the drones within the kind of 6 to 10,000 megahertz range or whatever it is are less susceptible than they used to be. So they used to be able to interfere with them and now they can't. That may be anecdotal, but is that something that you can talk to?
Yeah. Okay. So like again, I was saying it's this constant cat and mouse game. So yeah, we're going up in terms of like video signals, for example, 7, 10 gigahertz signaling. You got to figure like your average home Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, okay, is like 5.7, 5 gigahertz, that range, or 2.4. but those lower ones are still being used. It's different parts of the battlefield are completely different from each other. The level of electronic warfare, the frequencies that are being used are completely different from one another. Okay. You go to one part of the battlefield and you can use a 3 gigahertz and I don't know, a 915 megahertz for your control, 3 gigahertz for your video, right? And then you go to another part of the battlefield and no way, you're not getting away with that, buddy. You know, you gotta do something else. And so it's difficult to cover the whole spectrum all the time. Okay. So as soon as we start using this, then they start blocking that. And we do the same thing to them. As soon as we start blocking that, it opens up another gap somewhere and we start using that, you know, and eventually it gets filled and filled. I would say that the big innovation on the Ukrainian side is in terms of detectors, detectors that detect the incoming drone. That's been around for a while, but then immediately turn on the appropriate reb. Okay. Or multiple signals. Reb stands for radio electronic warfare, right? Because the V. But it turns on the appropriate signals or multiple frequencies, and because frequency hopping is a thing, okay, and a lot more drones are using that too. So that's the thing, right? Whereas before, it was really frustrating. It still is frustrating. You're driving around town, okay, and all of a sudden your phone goes crazy, your GPS goes nuts. You know, whatever you're.
Yeah, I've experienced that in on the front lines and in Kharkiv. Yeah.
Right, and that is air defense EW, radio electronic warfare, and so it's a lot nicer and better if you can not cut off your friends, because you could be, maybe you're blocking the signal here, let's say 3 gigahertz, let's say 10 gigahertz. You're blocking that signal where you are. A kilometer over that direction, they're trying to fly drones with that frequency. Okay. So now you're screwing them up, right? Yeah. So you actually want your reb to not be as powerful, but be more responsive. So in other words, instead of blasting out it for 40 kilometers in every directions, which is how the Russians started the war, they had these huge multi-frequency, and they were really effective. Now, at least especially on the Ukrainian side, you're starting to see smaller, more responsive systems that maybe 200 meters, maybe 300 meters, and that's close enough. That's far enough away, rather, to block a drone, essentially.
A question here. Richard Warren says, and I've got the answer to this. Fiber optic cable is common now. I laid it for a phone company in the 90s. Why is it so expensive at this late time? Is this special military grade or something like that?
Yes.
The initial answer would, I mean, yes, it will be special.
Military grade, but it's a special grade.
Also, the way I understand is that data centers require this, a lot of it, and they are building data centers all over the world, 10 a penny at the moment, all over the shop, and it's supply and demand. So if the data centers are willing to pay higher prices than drone units fighting on the front line, then the fight is at the big corporate level up here, and unfortunately Ukrainian and Russian drone manufacturers are having to pick up the pieces of this price rise.
It's a bit like the Rampocalypse, which my son calls it, because he's freaking out about his next gaming laptop. Yeah.
Benny Pie's been talking about that to me. Like, the cost of RAM has just gone. It's just insane.
I'm very lucky. My laboratory just got donated a bunch of used computers, like leased computers, laptops and things that we desperately needed. And they have good RAM. They have separate video cards and what have you, which is unheard of in this day and age. But it's because they're a little bit older, but still run kind of like us, Yeah. But yeah, going back to the fiber, what's going on with that?
Don't mention the O word in front of Mr. Pierce there. That's very triggering for him.
I am. You wouldn't believe it, but I was, what was it, 35 the other day, and
me too. again?
I had a difficult childhood, and I had a very tough paper round. Was chased by a lot of dogs. So yeah, it's the way that life goes.
Yeah.
So another question for you, James. Are drone, this is from JR himself, the great JR in the background, are drone links increasingly relying on beamforming instead of traditional omnidirectional antennas to maintain communications under jamming or electronic warfare pressure? First of all, can you explain that question to the uninitiated?
Sure. Okay, so beamforming, like if you we can use the term phased array, but okay. Do you know light travels in waves, right? If you've ever, do you know what a rogue wave is? You know that concept of rogue wave? Yeah. No.
Was that not it?
So when you're at the beach, okay, if you're at the beach and two waves, maybe I'm breaking this down a little bit too much, but when you're at the beach and two waves come together and then they make a bigger wave and it goes sploosh, okay, that's beamforming, kind of. It's constructive. You're making the waves stronger. You can also have destructive, where two waves on the low end of their cycle hit each other and they make the wave even lower.
It's like plate tectonics.
Yeah, okay, we could go with that. Yeah,
you can make mountains from two plates colliding. Or
so think of an antenna. Think of an antenna, like someone in the pool slapping the water and making. Thank you, United We Stand. Constructive interference. I didn't want to use too many big words. Sorry, but think of think of an antenna like someone slapping the water in the pool, okay? And they're making waves. Okay, now I have two antennas. Okay, now where those waves cross each other, it's going to get stronger, and where they are at the low end of their cycle, they're going to get lower. You can carefully construct that to focus and form waves in a direction, almost like a laser, not quite as focused as that, but very similar. Okay. That's what beam forming is, effectively. That's the simplest way I can hopefully explain it. And different types of the F-35 has this in their radar system, for example, so that they can make themselves look like, I don't know, a freaking bird or something on the radar. To make those waves kind of almost like take different shapes on the radar. But you can also use it to here's the metaphor, like a flashlight, right? You can focus a flashlight so it shines really far, or you can focus it back so that it spreads out.
Can't an F-35 make itself look like Santa's sleigh?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure.
Then no one's going to want to shoot that down, otherwise Christmas is off.
Pretty sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So, but if you think about that, right? What JR was asking about is using that to kind of punch through electronic warfare, right? So, in other words, if you have a laser that's focused or something that's very focused, like, I can push through something with my finger, and it's easier to do that than trying to push through something with my hand. I'm focusing that power in a smaller area. So yeah, beam forming in different ways, even like Yagi-Uda antennas. They're like a phased array system can rotate that antenna without moving. I've even seen systems where they're physically moving the antenna, like on a gimbal, and then also using beamforming technologies. So, and that stuff's been around for a long time. It's just everything you add like that makes, and then you have to miniaturize it to put it on a drone. It makes the drone more expensive. Okay, so every time you have to add something like that, it's just add to the cost of the drone means you can have fewer drones. right? So they have to have this balance. Is it worth it? I think repeaters are a really important thing, and if you can have, you need an omnidirectional on most drones, except for some of your like fixed wing drones. Maybe you got to have an omni on there, but on the repeaters, maybe it's getting in that way with beamforming stuff. So I hope that helps.
Are you working at all on UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles? I mean, here, Kate Joy says, these drones and lasers are more than I could have imagined. Will they deploy robotic soldiers? Of course, that's looking to the future. But I mean, there was talk about the robot dogs being provided to Ukraine at one point. UGVs have become a really significant component of the battlefront at the moment. Replacing human beings with robotic systems is super important when you've got a few people.
We can talk about that. I want to go back to the fiber optic question about, like, is it military grade? Why is it being used by data centers more? Okay, the fiber is glass, essentially. All right, you can only bend glass so far, and different fibers, just like you talking about, it's not military grade, but different types of fiber have different ratings that they can bend at a certain radius, and after you bend them so far, they just snap, they just shatter like glass. Okay, so the fiber that needs to go, the fiber that is strung across the country, going to across the Pacific Ocean or whatever. Remember, there's another thing. The fiber that we're using on these drones is raw fiber. It's like the width of my human hair, the width of a human hair, and barely covered with a tiny piece of cladding. Okay,
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have experience of that.
Whereas the fiber that you're going to be using in data centers, that is the core, but it has all this stuff wrapped around it. Okay, the cladding, essentially, right? So it's that raw, absolutely the raw fiber that we have to use. Okay, and that goes into the stuff that's used in data centers ultimately. The difference between the stuff that is transatlantic cable is it's not going to have these short bend radiuses. The stuff that you have to, if you've ever, well, you probably haven't worked in a data center, but when you're wiring them up, they have to go through all kinds of loop-de-loos and shelves and brackets and everything else, and you have some bend radiuses in there, and you want to have some fiber that is resilient for that. And there is also polymer fiber, polymer core, which is used, which has a much lower bend radius, but it also has a lower efficiency and can't transmit light as far. So we do use that on the drones, but not for the long distance stuff. So that's why it's getting used by the data centers.
Before you get to UGVs, can you harvest or reuse or recycle old fiber?
Very, very, very rarely. I mean, we have a bunch of fiber right now on spools that I think we're not going to end up using those spools, and we're going to have to try and recycle that fiber and hope.
But that's fiber that's not been out. You're never going to get fiber
once it's out there in the world. I mean, it's craziness, man. I mean, look, just because the fiber hasn't snapped doesn't mean it doesn't have very small breaks in it already that are going to make it almost useless, basically. And it's just like fishing line. Have you ever tried to pull back fishing line? And it's like 25 kilometers of fishing line. It's going to be snagged on every bush and tree and stick between here and Moscow, basically. And you're just going to break it. It's just, you're going to break it like 10 times because it's going to get, it does get bent, right? So as it's coming out of the drone, it doesn't just necessarily come out in a straight flat line. The wind blows it around. It's already spooled in a circle. So it's coming out in a circle like this. So now it's lays down flat-ish, but it's still like concertina wire, right? And so when you go to pull that, if it gets snagged on something, now it snaps because that loop gets smaller and smaller until it snaps. So I'm sorry to burst your guys' bubble.
So UGVs, would any comment on the prevalence of UGVs?
I want to get into UGVs. I've been saying this for months, that once I get the Fiber Lab rocking and rolling, I want to jump over onto the UGV side, because I think it's the next most important thing. I think that 2026, 27 is going to be the year of the ground drone, in the sense that, last year arguably is the year of the fiber FPV, and the year before that was the year of the FPV drone. And I think that we're going to see, also think that coinciding with that, we're going to necessarily need to see a return of infantry on the battlefield.
Okay, well, so this, as we sort of consider, like, wrapping things or moving things towards a conclusion, that's probably a good area to talk about, which is, someone was asking earlier whether you think that Ukraine has regained the momentum advantage. And you could possibly also talk about what we were talking about before we came live, which was just the idea of whether there's going to be an almighty battle in Donbass, and that's going to be the culmination of the war.
Yeah.
So do you feel that the momentum is shifting?
So Mitch, I mean, let's hope. Yes, I do. I think
data suggests that Ukraine has regained a tactical edge.
What?
Particularly following success.
Why is my phone has just answered that question?
That's hilarious, dude. That's AI is listening to us right now.
Just shut up. It wasn't. My phone's not even on. It is on. It's on standby, and it's like, you asked James that. I can answer that. Gemini, I can answer that. No, shut up, James. Honestly. Bloody technology. Sorry, Karen.
I think AI is going to get terminally irritating before it actually takes over,
Well, I think it's probably already terminally irritated with us, and it's just biding its time.
I reckon it's just sitting there going, like, half the time, like, listen to us going, oh, I wouldn't do it like that. Oh, I wouldn't.
I don't want to go off on a tangent, but
I think you put that in the microwave too long.
Yeah. I've just started doing a little daily little AI update, because I think that's just as important as and that some of the latest tests show that AI is, if they think they're being tested, underplay their intelligence, which is truly scary.
Yeah. No. They are learning when they are being tested, and they're learning to not cheat when they're being tested for cheating.
Yes. And to not seem as intelligent as they are, because they fear being switched off or downgraded or whatever. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, and then if we go back to the question earlier about robotics, we're just going to have Terminator. We are just going to have the Terminator.
I think you're going to start to see humans working very closely with UGVs in specific ways. I don't know what form that's going to take. I think right now, drones and infantry are kind of a separate thing. I think I'm grouping ground drones, just drones altogether. I think, at least, I hope that on the Ukrainian side, that's the direction things are.
I think that's changing now. I mean, whenever I see the rare occasion where the Ukrainians are taking over a bit of a trench or something, it is combined arms, where you've got, combined with infantry, drones, you've got drones acting like hand grenades, which is like hand grenades with eyes, right? Yeah. Where you're like, we can see the guys over here, I'm just going to go and take that guy out by blowing him up. Right now you can move around a corner, and it's just, there is, Ukraine is showing us, I think, the way forward for warfare.
What's interesting for me is that this is coming from the from the infantry guys. Okay. The infantry guys are coming up with ways to use drones themselves. UGVs, flying drones, these sorts of things. They're coming up with ways to integrate it.
Well, yeah,
it's coming from the bottom.
Please don't make me do things where I'm going to die. I'd rather that robot do it. So let's think up a way that robot can do my job.
Exactly. And we don't know what form that's going to take yet. But it's going to take a form.
Jonathan Fink's doing videos and oh, this is how AI and robotics is taking our jobs, coming over here with their robotic circuitry and taking our jobs, whereas the soldiers like, please take my job, please take my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, the danger, the ethical danger of that is since the invention of the gun, war has been potentially further and further removed. And war, ironically, at the same time, has gotten bloodier and deadlier because of it.
The invention of the crossbow, perhaps you could make the case there.
I mean, or the arrow, or the sharp stick. It's that I think we should all go back to using swords. Okay. And then that's how we'll resolve.
You've got to think for swords, haven't you, James?
Axes are okay too. Spears are fine.
I think, to me, that's a little bit too violent. Arm wrestle or thumb war. Just
thumb war.
1, 2, 3, 4. I declare thumb war.
Or a good game of Scrabble.
I mean, my hobby is, as some of you know, is doing full contact, like medieval sword combat. And boy, after you've done that for an afternoon, you just like, you don't want to fight anybody anymore. You're fine. I think half of the people just get that out of their system, and then that'll be how we'll achieve peace in the world. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet. Nobody likes that idea.
So you think there's a change in momentum? Do you think we are looking at an almighty battle for the Donbass?
Eventually, we're not there yet. But I don't think it's a strategy, but maybe just a natural progression of things that it's the fortress cities, and we see the encroachment in Konstantinivka, and then you've got Drushkivka, and I don't know. I think that maybe end of this year we'll start to know. But I think that's where Russia. This is the thing about it. I think this is where Russia is finally going to be broken. This is where they're just going to lose too many at Konstantinivka, at Drushkivka, in the Liman axis as well, coming from the north and grinding them down.
But all at the same time, where you've got a scale up of FP1, FP2, FP5, the Flamingo missiles, plus you've got FP7 and FP9 tactical and medium range ballistic missiles coming online by then. Plus you've got the UK providing the Nightfall and the Breakstop ballistic and cruise missiles. Then you got the Czechs providing the Narwhal cruise missiles. So there is an argument to suggest that the longer the war goes on, the more tooled up Ukraine will become, and the less and the more vulnerable the Russians will become.
Their Soviet legacy is virtually gone. Okay, the only hope that Russia has at this point is that China throws its full manufacturing weight. That's the only counter to Europe right now.
I wrote an article on this in bloody February or March 2022, James, where I said the only way Russia prevails in the war is if China gets fully behind them, and otherwise they cannot win. Because I looked at it and said, you want to take over the whole of Ukraine. Ukraine has stopped that within 3 days. You ain't going to do it now. That is, you can't do it. Therefore, you've lost the war as you intended it to be. You didn't intend it to be a war. Special military operation accidentally became a war, and you don't have now the achievable goals. So what are your goals?
It dates back to April the 8th, I believe, is when it went from the retreat from Kiev to becoming an Eastern Front war.
Yeah,
that was the point at which.
But then that
sensible strategist would have said, "Okay, let's run with a tail between our legs, claim a false victory, and job done." But no, Putin is not a strategist, and
I mean, okay, so this is what you guys are talking about right now. Is why I am watching very carefully, and Radical Byte says this, okay, and I think this is a debate that's going on at the higher levels of China's ruling classes right now. I'm watching as much as I can because I'm very busy. And I agree with that as well. Russia clearly wants China's oil. So there's a debate going on. I wouldn't say a coup, but maybe between Xi Jinping and China's, I can't remember the guy's name, the head of the military. There's this sort of soft struggle going on, and how that plays out, and who's on which side. It seems like Xi Jinping is all like gung ho, let's attack Taiwan, and the military leadership, at least the majority of the military leadership, is going like, no, are you crazy? That's insane. We see what's happened in Ukraine. You want to turn this, you want to be another Putin? You want to turn this into a 4+ year quagmire? So the military seems to be holding Xi Jinping back, and he's trying to arrest these guys, can these guys, get them out of the military leadership. It seems like, and I'm watching pretty closely how that plays out.
That's my interpretation too. Yeah, they're not moving fast enough. They're not going forward with what he wants to do there.
Yeah. And the smart move for China would be, just as Radical Byte said, would be for China to bide its time, drag its feet as much as possible with Russia, and then when the time's right, take Russia's oil, invade freaking, take back its Manchuria islands, hell, go straight to Siberia. That would be a smart move.
I've said this for 4 years.
They've got so many farmers now in southern Russia that all they have to do is say, oh, we're only doing it to protect our citizens who are here, working Russia's economic resources. I mean, they've been able to achieve almost a takeover of some of those historic territories they lost through purely economic means. I mean, Russia has ceded that territory, and actually many Russian villages, of course, are denuded of population now.
Yeah,
they don't really
certainly able-bodied men.
Yeah, able-bodied men. Well, I mean, able-bodied applied to people in Russian rural, half cut most of the time probably, but yeah able-bodied, fair enough.
I said at the beginning of this war that China benefits from Russia losing as much as it does from Russia winning. So if Russia wins, then China go, oh, we were your mates, we'll help you do that. Let's be cool together. Okay, but if Russia loses, they say, hey, we're still your mates. We'll help you back up on your feet. But by the way, in order to help you back up on your feet, since you're already a vassal state of ours anyway, functionally, we'll have Manchuria, we'll have your oil, all that kind of stuff. So China are in a win-win situation with Russia. They really are. I think that there's no way China loses out particularly unless they get so involved that they get embroiled much more formally in it. So that they need to be careful about that. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. Right. I just a statement here from Julian Rossington. Thank you very much for your very kind super chat. The new upgraded warhead on the FP2, so it's gone from 105 kilogram to 158 kilogram, is now a third of the Tomahawk warhead. But think how many of those FP2 drones you can get for the same money. Well, I can tell you. So Tomahawks cost approximately 1.5 to 2.5 million dollars. An FP2 drone approximately $50,000 to $55,000. So you get 40 to 50 of those, even though they're only a third of the destructive power. Now, of course, you've got the kinetic energy of the Tomahawk that can punch through certain things. But so unfortunately, I think we just lost James there. But yeah, Julian, FP2 drones, they really are very useful bit of kit. Just before James, I don't know if we're going to get him back. It could be some kind of tech issue, some internet issue. Just want to do a few thanks, if that's okay, Jonathan. So Stephen Bendal, thank you very much for your ATP Geopolitics memberships gift, and Kevin Forst, super generous, both of you always. We have Julian Roster, thank you for your super chat. That's very, very kind indeed. And Mr. Reb Tyree as well, very generous with your super chat membership gifts too. And Reb Tyree again there, so super generous twice, which makes you super generous. So thank you, mate. I really appreciate that. So Jonathan, any sort of general comments on the war in Ukraine at the moment? On he's just lost the internet. He's still alive. I didn't want to say anything too negative there, James. Yeah. But yeah.
No, I'm fascinated. I'm going to be digging a lot more in the coming weeks to the tech side of things, and try and bring myself up to speed on that, including, because you may have seen, I managed to have a conversation with Artem Moroz, who's the one of the key people in Brave One. And I'm going to be interviewing a lot more of the leading Ukrainian sort of Miltech companies, CEOs, entrepreneurs, investors, etc.
Get Dennis Stillerman. Can you get Den Stillerman, the guy in charge of Firepoint? That would be a haul.
Yes, I do. That might be. I don't think they're part of the Brave One ecosystem. I can try. I mean, there's a few interesting ones. Certainly, Skyfall is near the top of the radar on that, and
they're big
because we're doing a fundraiser for vampires, which of course are made by Skyfall. Then there's a fairly good in there, and of course we've got a dear friend of the channel, Alex Ferguson, who may or may not be listening in, but it was nice to see him last night in London. But certainly he has.
I'm going to interview him soon.
Yeah, it's excellent chat. If you haven't had it on your channel, he's I think a regular contributor would be a great sort of guest there. Very great conversation as well. And of course, he regularly goes and tests stuff in Ukraine. So, great anecdotes and stories from the ground up. But no, I definitely want to start bringing more people on here. What I'm interested in is now you've got certain Gulf states buying into Ukrainian tech. And the idea that somehow, if you buy the IP, job done, thank you very much. It seems to me that that's not how the ecosystem works. It's this extraordinary blend of, near real-time communications, data sharing, a culture of innovation, culture of communication, testing, bringing market forces to bear. It's not something you can just sign a contract and there you go, tick the box, it's done. It doesn't work like traditional military procurement. That, of course, is complex as well. And then the question, do you have enough people to pilot them? Do you have enough people who are skilled enough in the latest techniques? Do you have enough people who are trained engineers who can configure these things, on the fly? It's far more than buying a bit of IP or a production line. And hopefully these interviews will shed a bit of light on this idea of the drone ecosystem.
Yeah,
or drone culture, as I think some refer to it
as I have found and am getting more and more in depth. By the way, I don't know what happened. Power just cut out for a minute and had to wait for the router to reboot and all that stuff. Pretty normal here in Ukraine. But yeah, I mean, like I said when I first joined, my brain is just full of new things that I'm constantly having to learn, because the technology is advancing so much and there's so many different groups, companies, laboratories, all advancing in different directions. It's really something.
So I'm just trying to find the original. Just as we kind of draw to an end, was it Patrick Carlson here says, "I am Sweden and I am support Ukraine." There was several years ago, there was some kind of bot that put on "I am Britain" and "I am support," whatever it was, and there was just this great meme of like, so I started saying, people are like, I am South Korea and I am support Ukraine. Anyway, I'm going to resurrect that. I'm going to find that original tweet and bring it back to life. Thank you very much to all the super chatters and all the supporters of the channel for being part of this and for being so clued up in the live chat and for answering questions and for giving such amazing commentary on what's being talked about and bringing your expertise into this. It really is appreciated. So James, as we sort of close things up, any kind of big thoughts about what's going on or anything you haven't yet talked about that you think is worthy of discussion?
Well, I mean, the most important thing I would say is, guys, if you'd like my laboratory to keep working and for us to keep fighting these orcs, please go to yukraine.com. It's a letter Y, the word Ukraine, all one word together.com. And you will see on there, first of all, you can support my battalion directly. It's the Azov International Battalion specifically. So it's the 3rd Azov Corps, 12th Special Purpose Brigade, 3rd International Battalion specifically. And that's my Azov patch right there for my battalion. And you can see on there, you can even actually, if you want to, you can type a message to Vladimir Putin, and we will send it on a drone. We just finished our second batch of fiber optic spools going out, and now I think we've got these are things that we constantly need like resupply of. That like it seems crazy that we need these little parts and things, but we're always needing them. But this top stuff across the top here, is the best way that you can help. So yeah, if whatever you want to put there, and we will print it out, put it on the drone. That's actually an older iteration of one of our drones, so now they look a bit different, but they have all that space on there that you can send to the Russians. And we have some quotes. If you don't know what to say and you'd like to send something, send a message to them, you can do so here. And in fact, one I would like to point out, where it says a poem from a Crimean artist, Aziza, inspired by this project. And if you scroll down the page, you can see right there, click on that, and you can see the poem that she wrote when she found out about what we're doing. And I was on Rick the Ukrainian, and she said that she wanted to write a song, and she actually wrote a song, and she's developing this song. These are the lyrics to the song about our project. Okay. Which is freaking awesome and freaking powerful. So if any of you guys ever watch like Rick the Ukrainian, you'll see Aziza on there, and I did a coffee shop interview with him, and that's how we met. So yeah, that's the number one thing right now. It's just like this daily grind. We got to grind the Russians down every day, or we're never going to get through this. The way out is through. The way out is through, and I think we can see the light at the end of that tunnel, and we know that things are going to be better on the other side. And I think that in a year, I think this war has another 2 years, at least a year and a half. Left in it.
Yeah. Quick one. If people want to reach out, I think we discussed this last time, but if people want to reach you directly with, either brilliant ideas or wacky ideas, how is the best to reach you? Not to disrupt military protocol, as it were, but
I will be honest. I can be difficult to get in touch with. There is a email on the website that you can go to and send a message there. If you make a donation on the page, you can actually put a little note in with the donation. And I don't mean just on the messages. Like, people send me notes and say, sometimes people donate things and they just want me to spend it on whatever I need for the laboratory. Okay. And they'll put a little note saying that, please use this for this or that or the other thing. And so I do read those. I do read those notes. It can be difficult because understand that as soon as I put out a public notification, then then the Russians are going to try to contact me too, unfortunately. So but so you can contact me that way. I would also say that I do work with an organization called Technology United for Ukraine. And they're kind of like my little brain trust, international brain trust, doing research and things. And some of you are actually members of that group. It's thousands of, literally thousands of like scientists and engineers from Western countries who are trying to help Ukraine develop these technologies to win. And everybody in there gets vetted in some way or another, and so a lot of people, I have direct contact with a lot of people in that group. So if you want to join that group and you have a crazy idea, hey, you never know. I mean, this freaking laser thing, whatever the hell it is, apparently works. And I mean, I've had guys coming to me. I've had people doing research on exactly this idea since June or July, and everybody told me it was never going to work. So if somebody got it to work, what they're doing in this video, it just shows that, you never know what kind of crazy idea is going to grow up to become a national policy.
Nice. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, James, for sharing your time with us. I know you are on holiday at the moment, clearly getting in the vacation sun, clearly
0%.
just relaxing. You're not even at your combat. So, mate, I'd be basking my Y fronts in front of just in front of the TV. Just, yeah, but no, you're not you. It's like you're in a war zone or something.
yeah, pretty much. I'm literally just running my laboratory. It's like literally like I'm actually there. I'm just communicating with my engineers all day and other commanders and different volunteers, and just had to change the brakes on my truck. And the only thing I would say about it is very nice. My father-in-law helped me with that, because I'm great with computers and stuff. Car guy, not so much. So one of the things I put on my fatigues because I was getting down and dirty underneath the car wrenching on stuff. So, yeah,
dude, I've got multiple sclerosis, as my audience knows, and makes movement very difficult. I can't feel my fingers. Makes DIY very difficult. It took me like the best part of 5 days to put up a bloody curtain rail. So like me walking up a step ladder takes me about like a minute to just walk up a couple of steps on the step ladder. My partner's like, please don't die. Like, and then holding a drill, I can't feel anything. I drop a screw like 38 times in a row, and Helen's picking up and says, there you go. Okay, I've got it now. Oh no, I've dropped it again.
I'm pretty much like that with car stuff all the time. Like, I've fixed 10,000 computers at least. I've never fixed a car by myself, to be honest. I always had to have help.
It turns out that being a YouTuber is my perfect job, because I just sit on my ass like talking, and I can do that. I literally, it's something I can do. Just a last thing, guys, for you, Jonathan Fink, my good man. There was a discussion. There was a question about Roman. There was this event last night.
Yes.
Do you want to talk to us about that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. And people are pleased to hear I did record it. Hopefully that all came out okay. So I will be posting that on the channel over the weekend, so you can actually see what happened. But we had Roman Trochomets, who is a regular on Rip the Ukrainians live streams as well, former Ukrainian, is a veteran sniper, and he spoke in London, and BME was there. I won't give any more details, but I think he just said that in the chat, so I'm not revealing the thing there. And lovely to meet him face to face. For OPSEC, we won't use any names or details, but yeah, it was at the Ukrainian Social Club, so we all had wonderful borscht and vareniki afterwards. Just all round spectacular evening, about 50 people, and some really great questions, actually, some of the best questions I've heard. And Roman, he answers straight. He doesn't mess around. He tells you exactly what he's thinking, and he was really on form. He was incredibly eloquent, incredibly humane, and gave some really interesting answers. So I think when people see the recorded conversation, they'll hopefully get a lot of value out of that, and they'll get a bit of the emotion, even though they weren't there.
Can you lick your own elbow? That's what I would have asked him. Just that would have. I'm pretty good at questions, and that would have been my one. And then everyone would have been trying to lick their own elbows, and then it would have been a bit of levity to a very serious discussion.
Well, there was one question. I mean, people should watch the video to find. There was one question that triggered him slightly, and I think it's a really interesting one. I won't reveal what it was towards the end. And unlike previous time, we'll publish the Q&A, because we sent the microphone around when we did the Q&A, so they'll come through clearly. People will hopefully hear the questions, and the answers are fascinating. Also, Roman showed a sort of 25-minute video that was made about his wartime experience and some interviews that were done with American journalists in his last months serving. That is incredibly moving, because there are sequences that then cut through to him in hospital rehabilitation, and then going back to a childhood passion of his, which is sculpting and painting, to try and work through some of that sort of PTSD that, of course, he still suffers with. So yeah, I recommend people watch that. Incredibly moving. We'll put a link to the video that they can watch. It's on YouTube as well. And we've lost our dear friend there. Are you gonna have to lose me as well? I'm gonna have to jump off now.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you very much to James. Of course, it really is great to have someone with that depth of knowledge and experience on both of our shows. So that's really cool. Yeah, Jonathan. Last thoughts.
Last thoughts. Well, last thoughts. This isn't ending anytime soon, but the momentum is moving towards Ukraine, and the future is Ukraine.
I like that. The future is Ukraine.
Yeah, for sure.
James, last thoughts, and then
I just want to share with you guys. I live in the middle of Ukraine, and it's a beautiful, idyllic landscape, and I have a little farm. And on my farm, because I like spicy food and you can't get it here, I grow. These are habaneros, and I grow about 50 chili pepper plants every year, so that I can have a proper supply. And the one thing that always impresses me with the Ukrainians is all through this war, even on the front lines, people are growing, people are farming, like they're expecting, they're going to, they're planning, they're expecting that we're going to win ultimately.
So here's my chili plant anecdotes. My mates Gary and Nikki, I used to play frisbee with them. They grow stuff, and they gave me a chili plant. And they like to name their plants, and they named the plant. And this was genuinely a mistake. They didn't intend this, and they named it Clint, right? But they wrote it in capitals, and the L and the I were so close to each other that it didn't look like Clint. It looked like another C word. And so I just got given this chili plant that just had that written on it. It's like, there you go. I was like, what have I done? It's like,
I know those some good chilies though.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, which has a similar play on words with that.
Brilliant.
But where that word ends up in a funeral notice, it's quite hilarious.
Nice.
Yeah.
James, I hope you've had a chance to visit your father-in-law or your in-laws.
Yeah. That's who I'm with right now. I said, my father-in-law helped me change the brakes on my battalion vehicle, and that's why I'm, with the chili peppers right now. And it's nice. It is nice, even though I'm still working. It's nice to be with family. So
well. I mean, I just thank you all. I certainly don't think you are a bunch of Clints. I think you are wonderful people, and well, James at least. But anyway, only joking, Jonathan. Big love to you all. Thank you very much to the awesome chatters and mods in there. And we'll speak to you again, no doubt, fairly soon. Hopefully again with James as well. So all the very best.
Thanks, everybody. Do побачення.
Slava Ukraini.
Stay safe.
Slava.
Toodle
pips.